Hello, hello, and welcome to another edition of Phishing for Answers. Today I am joined by the talented Tim Chase. He is a field CISO over at Laceworks. Tim, you were telling me a little bit about a story before we got started.
Yeah,
You want to open there and maybe tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
yeah, absolutely. So, my background is in AppSec, cloud security, GRC, that space. But I've been a CISO a couple of times before I made the trek over to being a field CISO, and so I've had the opportunity to build, grow, lead security teams. And I remember, I think it was my second time when I was being a CISO. Um, and this was several years ago. I would say, the back when phishing scams were still kind of rudimentary, where, you can look at them for just grammatical errors. They were semi obvious, right? But it was kind of at the very beginning of when the whole gift card scam came around. And I remember a certain leader. I don't want to give too much away and point any fingers, but one of the execs of the company kind of came to me in a panic a little bit, and she showed me an email, and the email was just very short. Hey, I can't talk right now. I need you to buy some gift cards. Please send them here. And she did. Right, she didn't pay attention to the exact email it was coming from. So this was around Christmas time, right? So uh, budgets are tight, and we're talking about not like $200 worth of gift cards. It was two or $3,000 worth of gift cards that she went ahead and paid for in expense, right? And so she was rightfully in a little bit of panic. Is there anything I can do? Can I get a refund? Obviously, in the end, the company reimbursed her, and it was a good learning exercise. But it was kind of at the start of when those started to become popular. I think those still happen, right? But it's kind of tis the season as we get into Christmas and shopping. Watch out for those type of scams, because that really hit her hard, and it was definitely personal.
Yeah, I have a brother-in-law that falls for a gift card scam at least once a week. Um, I joke. You think I'd be joking, but it's actually true. He really does fall for these
Like,
gift
you
cards.
know what I do for a living, right? Like, come on, brother.
I mean, well, my wife actually works with me here too, and she's just like, "Hello," and every time they'll be like, "You just don't trust people." Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, that's right.
Um, No, but I mean, gift card scams are absolutely still a thing. One thing I found interesting about what you said and just the evolution of phishing is, you said it was back in the day when the typos and all these little things like that gave it away. And what I find funny about that is it's actually the opposite now. Like if you've got typos, it actually indicates that it's almost more human. Whereas before it was, more of an indicator that was malicious. But with AI, I see that the complexity of phishing has gone up significantly, and they're even able to do a lot more customization. It would seem. What are you seeing there? I mean, that's a great segue.
Mhm.
May as well just jump right into AI here.
Yeah, I think that's great because, you know, maybe a little bit in response to this, back when I was setting up that security program, we really started to take a look at some of the software that we're using. Is there anything that we can do to mitigate that kind of stuff, right? If we look at the headers, if we look at where it's coming from, what can we do? But we were really focused on the typos. For example, um, if the CEO signs his name this way, he never signs his name that way. He always uses his short name, not his full name. So we were looking at ways to try and mitigate that, right? But I think the complexity there, I mean, that stuff still needs to be filtered, and you obviously still have to do that base level of work. But the complexity is there because now you have the chat GPT engines that can sometimes speak better English than you can. I mean, I know personally, I don't send phishing emails, but like, I run a kind of a travel agency as a side thing with me and my wife and I do. And when I post on social media, I always take my blurb that I think sounds good, and I put it into chat GPT and I say, make this sound better. And
Same.
holy crap, it does. And I'm like, why didn't I think of that? Right. So why couldn't you do that? Why wouldn't you do that with the phishing scam? Right. And so that throws kind of that whole easy filtering method that I mentioned out the window. Right. And then to kind of go on top of that, the kind of the chatting, the back and forth. It's not even just the initial email and how you craft the email, but with some more sophisticated phishing scams or social engineering scams, there'll be a conversation. It's not just a one-off, right?
Yeah.
Well, the chat GPT can carry on this conversation. And not only that, but it can, I don't know how many people know this, maybe most people do, but like chat GPT and the other ones can take on a persona and sound like that person or a type of person. And what I mean by that is when we were first demoing our uh, our AI functionality, our chatbot that was built in to our product, one of the things we always like to do at the booth was say, "Hey, tell me about this security alert, but tell it to me as a pirate. Tell it to me in an email that a CEO can understand. Tell it to me in an email that an analyst can understand." Right. And so the persona would flip, right? It would totally do the pirate, but then it could totally do the CEO as well. And so, you know, it's not a stretch to say, hey, let's write this chat bot. Let's write this email based on how this person would write, because a lot of CEOs and leaders are prolific and they post on LinkedIn. So it wouldn't be that hard to kind of understand um, how they refer to themselves, how they write, and things like that. So in this day and age, that just makes it a lot harder to maybe identify what's phishing and what's
And
not.
ChatGPT speaks like what 260 different languages or some ridiculously
Something
large
crazy.
that. Still less than what is spoken in New York City, but just the mass or the vast amount of languages I find very intriguing because it can very easily translate. And because of the amount of data that is used to train these models, they're often aware of colloquialisms,
Hmm.
particularly if you vary the model to the region. So if I'm looking for, the different uh, unique colloquialisms that might be used in Hong Kong, I would probably go to the Baidu, large language model. Whereas if I'm over in the Middle East, I'm probably on Falcon, or if I'm in Russia, I'm on the Yandex model. But I do find it very interesting because these different models allow you to really customize down to a level that would have required that I had a linguist and an analyst that understood the area before. But now I don't have to have that. I just ask an AI, and like that, it's done. I mean, it can create video, it can create audio. Did you see the Notebook LM podcasting feature in Google?
I did. I saw them. I saw them try that. I was like, "Holy crap! That is crazy."
It is, isn't it? I mean, it's just absolutely insane. I wish yeah, I don't have it here. I wish I did though, because I had to do a podcast about Fish Firewall, and it just, I mean, it's probably higher production value than this podcast. I joke, but I mean, it was ridiculously good quality. But those are the things that I think are a really big concern too, because just like things can be used for good, they can be used for bad. And I feel like we opened up Pandora's box without thinking, and now we can't close it. And so there's a little bit of catching up that has to be done. And by definition, you can't close Pandora's box, so that catch up is then difficult.
Yeah.
And I think that everyone's looking at different elements of it. And that actually
Hmm.
leads me to my next question here. So, what threats are you most concerned about as it pertains to AI? And then, as a follow up question to that, what do you think we should be training our users on in terms of AI? Because that's changed too. I mean, the just what we have to train our users on has really evolved in the last 12 months alone.
Yeah. I'll answer that a couple ways that maybe I can take the conversation in different areas. I am concerned not to keep talking about the topic, but I am concerned with phishing's effect on AI and how all that works together. And the reason I am most concerned about that is because I when you look at where a lot of the attacks are these days, I think a couple of the cloud security, app security, those are all super important. You have to have those, right? But a couple of areas that I think need a lot of focus. One is on identity. I think identity is a big focus area of any major cybersecurity program. Most CISOs that I'm talking to are undergoing
Just access
whether
management.
it's the human, the non-human, they're they're undergoing that. But a lot of the attacks that you see, like going back to the casinos or whatever, it's not like they found some firewall port open and then they managed to weasel their way in, right? A lot of these attacks these days, there is some social engineering aspect to it. Like I don't want to go back and rehash all the casinos, but you know, a lot of times they're able to kind of use those social engineering tactics to get from one person to another person or pretend to be security or the help desk and get access by taking their identity and then obviously creating their own identity and going on, right? So I do think that social engineering is just is super important. But I think the old way of just doing um, awareness training by once a year sending an email and seeing reporting who clicks on it and who doesn't probably is not going to work. So what I would think that you would want to do and what I would want to do is educate uh, my company on why AI has an effect on these type of social engineering messages, right? So any sort of awareness training, whether you do that in an online method, whether you do it in a security champion sort of training where you have kind of this training that you provide to the whole company. But I think even coming up with examples where it's you can record it and or whatever, but to help people understand exactly how powerful AI is, because I just don't think a lot of people um, understand. Right? I was having a conversation with my wife, who's in the medical field, and um, I saw a tweet from Grok that said um, from Alon that said, hey, Grok can now look at X-rays and PET scans and MRI scans and read those for you. And she was like, "What?" Right? So I think that the lay people don't completely understand the effect that AI can have on mitigating security controls that we have in place. So just educating them on that is just number one, including that into your awareness training. That's probably that's kind of the entire user base. And then I think that the second part of the question potentially, if I were leading a security program, I would want to just be able to understand. First of all, I think we're kind of in the identification phase of AI, meaning I just need to know where it's being used at the moment, right? We need to put guardrails around it. We need to understand which models are being used. All of that. But I think it's just reminiscent to me of when we started going to the cloud, right? If you remember, I don't know. I think I went to the cloud back in
Being old.
2011, 2012, something like that, I think. Uh, and at that point, it was just, uh, all right, you know, the answer security would say no, right? No, you can't go to the cloud. Why are we going to store our data outside of my control? But that doesn't work. And so you get past the initial no, and then you've got to, okay, how am I going to secure it? And I think that's kind of where we're at with Gen AI right now, right? We're kind of getting past the business wants to use it. Security says no, they use it anyway. Okay, well, now let's figure out how to secure it. And so that's kind of where I think a lot of folks still are is in that identification phase, to just understand it's being used and we're doing our best to secure it. Um,
I might
but
argue all of cybersecurity is still in that
yeah,
investigation phase, but
that's probably true.
I mean, I feel like we should really equate it more to medicine. They practice. I feel like we practice cybersecurity because every day I feel like I'm learning something new.
Oh yeah,
Um, and and it's it's one of the most common questions. How do you keep up, right? Because the pace of change is so rapid in this industry, and so But no, I agree. It really is in its infancy. We don't necessarily understand all of the use cases, all of the different applications, even all of the models. I mean, there are a million different models, new ones coming out daily. I mean, just in terms of some of the tools that I use, I jump monthly between tools
Mhm.
because the market changes that quickly. And if I want to be able to stay on top of things, I have to be able to be that agile too.
Well, but it's also, the complexity here is it's not just a security problem, it's a privacy problem, right? I remember um, kind of when machine learning came around, right? I was doing machine learning at Calibra, and kind of working because Calibra is a data intelligence platform, and you have the ability to auto classify data to say, hey, is this PII, PHI? What do we have here? Well, in order to learn, the question is, do you allow data to mix? Do you allow data? Does it have to be kind of its own tenant? Because in order to learn the best, you learn the best with a larger amount of data, but there's some privacy issues as well, right? And so I think that's the other aspect of this that I've been, chatting a lot about is how do you balance the accuracy of the machine learning model with the privacy part? Like, you get it accurate enough by having your own tenant? Do you have all of your customers' data going to one model to be analyzed, or do they each have their own? Like, there's a lot of different aspects to it, I think.
Agreed, 100%. I know from my perspective, this is the first time it really seems real. I say that because AI has been the next big thing that's going to take over the world since 1958. But this time it really is.
Hmm.
And I see technology exploding like it did in the late 90s, early 2000s. And we haven't seen that level and that rapid of growth in a really long time. And so it's interesting and it's fun and it's exciting, but it's also scary because I see how quickly these companies pump out technology. I both worked in an application security, capacity for very large organizations, as well as founded a software company. I know how long it takes to move, and with the rate they're moving, we know they're heavily utilizing AI to write code. And so, how does that impact security? Do we need to worry about that? I would assume we do because there's
Hmm.
no way with you can push stuff out that rapidly and do it right. So I am concerned about when all of these vulnerabilities that weren't thought about at the beginning start to surface. And I was just thinking about it from a personal perspective the other day, but I was in my chat GPT and searching for something and started going through all of the different threads. And I'm like, man, if somebody got a hold of this, holy crap, the amount of information they would have on me. Uh, yeah, it was just uh, I don't know, an interesting thought, but I don't think it's
My,
just me. I think everybody
no,
has those like massive amounts of like these conversations.
mine's full of ninth grade algebra where I sneak off and pretend like I know what I'm doing for my daughter's algebra class, and I go over to the side and just ask it how to solve and graph a problem for me. So my daughter still thinks I'm genius. So that's what my Chat GPT log looks like. But no, I mean, you're spot on, right? And I think the struggle is just that, um, even in the security industry, I if you look at a lot of the products that are out there, is any how many products are utilizing AI in a way that is advantageous to our industry right now versus just being able to say they do it? There's a lot of chat bots out there,
Hmm.
but are we? It has the potential, like you said, like this feels real, but when does it get to the point where it's something tangible that can deal with some of the problems that we have in our industry, like data overload, vulnerability prioritization, data lake, um, analyzing of data lake, things like that I think are serious problems in our industry. Can you use an LLM in a a fish filter, right? So can you use
Actually,
to detect
yeah,
itself?
we were able to train one.
I like it.
And we're bringing it to market right now. But I mean, it is. I think those are the questions that we got to ask. And to one of my guests that I had on last week, Wendy Nather, she's saying we got to question everything,
Yeah.
including what I'm saying. She pointed out, uh, and well, she was saying what she was saying, but even what I'm saying. I mean, we got to question everything because there's so much even in our industry, it's like what you were saying with AI, where we see AI there for the purpose of having AI without any thought about providing real value. I almost imagine this like cartoon, like character smoking a giant cigar, just like give me some of that AI, you know. But I've actually heard people say that we need AI. Okay, well, what is it going to do?
Yeah.
How is it going to help? And as we learn those things and look at the research, because one thing I will point out is that for decades, we've known the potential of AI. And for decades, academic researchers have been writing papers about the potential of AI across different sectors. We can just simply go there and look at it, and there's a bunch of ideas about how we can effectively use this to provide more
Hmm.
value. In fact, I mean, I look at what we do at Fish Firewall. We built almost all of our technology off of those research papers that said, listen, nothing works in this industry. If you want to actually change some human behavior, you got to do this, this, and this. We were just the only ones that bothered to read the papers.
Love it.
But I do think there's value there. I don't want to keep the whole thing on AI. There's really so many other things, but I think one of those sort of sub points of AI, and one of the reasons that I feel like AI has a particularly um, has a lot of opportunities specifically in security awareness is because it can customize things down to that individual. And when I think about the AI threat and how they're targeting us, I see AI being used to send finance fish to my finance team. I
Hmm.
see it being used to send development fish to my developers. So to me, this is one of those areas where we need more of that contextual role based training, and the behavioral scientists of this world have already proven that when we can make something contextual to somebody's role, it is 15x more effective.
Yeah.
And so, if for no other reason, just because we want our training to be more effective, we need to go down that path. But I think we have to go down that path because the threat has already gone down that path too.
No, I agree totally, right? The biggest part of training is making it be something that isn't just a checkbox, right? Something you have to go through every year. It's the same for everybody, but in reality, the risk isn't the same for everybody. Like your finance folks have a little bit of a different risk than everybody else, right? Because they're at risk with the money. They're at risk with the money transfers. How many times I've worked for companies where um, they have fallen for the, hey, can you wire me this, right? And sure enough, the money goes out and it can't be gotten back, right? So I think being able to speak in the lingo that they understand, like you said, the models are already there, but let's meet them where they are. Let's get the um, like I used to work for a company that was healthcare training, right? Like if we're going to give, there was a security aspect to that training. Well, let's talk about that. Like what specifically do they need to know? Like my wife is a nurse practitioner. What she needs to know from a security training is different than what I need to know from security
Yeah.
training, because I know I just have a baseline knowledge that's different than her, right? And so meeting them where they are is both beneficial because it will help, but it will keep their attention as well. That's the thing. The micro training has really taken off. There used to be these 20-minute videos, but now you've either got the live action training or you've got the micro training. I do LinkedIn learning. I've got like 4 or 5 courses, I think, out there, and that's the big thing for them is they're like, hey, you're like, make it 2, 3, 4 minutes. You don't want to go any longer than that because you
We've even
you'll
gone crazier than that. Our shortest video is 12 seconds
there you
because
go.
Well, I mean, when you look at TikTok, you look at Reels, you look at Shorts. What does every single social media application have in common? They have these short form video, platforms where I can just go and scroll through.
Yeah.
And most of them now are giving you more categories. Like TikTok now has a STEM tab, so you
Hmm.
can go there and just keep completely on STEM, and it's all vetted, known, published, reputable authors, and aren't just going to give you, junk. But I mean, I see this as the direction our world's going in. When all of this started, social media, whether we blame Tom from MySpace or Zuckerberg, regardless of whose fault it is, it really did start changing the way that we ingest information. The internet did in general. We went from long form to short form. But when you look at it, it seems to me that content and entertainment and all of that is just a little ways behind advertising. If we look at advertising years back, it was, the standard length of a commercial was a minute. Now the average length is 15 seconds.
Hmm.
That is a drastic difference. And to me, I see that as being how our security awareness and sort of approach to training people has been going to, is shorter, shorter, shorter to match the shrinking attention spans that our people have. And let's be honest, let's take that healthcare worker. How much time do they have to learn? It's their walk between one patient to the next patient.
Yeah.
And so we want them to be able to do their training and be done before they get in there. And that's how you can keep them more security aware. If they have to make time for it and go sit down, they're not going to.
Not going to. It just sits. It comes to the very end. I would be curious to know if because I agree that the attention span has really came down. So I would love to see a study that is that because of social media that's brought that down. Is it because we're too busy? That's brought that. I'd be curious to know what exactly has brought that down. That's probably a psychological study somewhere that
Yeah,
could show
I
that.
mean, I know there are some studies on it. I would have to guess though that most of it is anecdotal, because at the end of the day, we don't necessarily know. But the few studies I've read really point to technology in general.
Mm.
It's the instant gratification aspect of our society that has changed it from us being patient and more willing to put in time to read or watch the video to, hey, I'm used to getting everything now. Why don't I have it? It's been 10 seconds already. Um, I joke, but I've been that guy at the drive-through before.
Oh, 100%. Right? Why is my food not ready?
Exactly. Right. Um, so along the lines of role-based training, you hit on a few key departments like your finance people, your developers. Are there any other like core common departments that you would focus in on when building out those roles?
Yeah, I mean, I think privacy is a big one too, and legal, like those two, they have very specific, functions. Whether it's the the worldwide privacy that they have to worry about, whether it's the GDPR, CCPA, like there's some very specific things there. I think, and then legal as well. I think those both of those teams speak kind of a different language, and so they need to um, probably have some specific training. And I just think cybersecurity professionals as well. I know I mentioned them, but
Yes, thank you. Sorry,
like
I was hoping you'd say that. But
yeah,
no, I
like
agree. Continuous MITRE attack framework training so that they know the tactics.
yeah, yeah, exactly, because they need to know the tactics. Like I said, we have a baseline understanding of cyber, and so I think a lot of the stuff are like, oh my gosh, like why are we like we know this, like we could have written this, right? Why are we having to go through this? And so why don't we up level that for our
Mhm.
cyber folks and provide them some specific training? So though I would say those are the ones that hit me, like the finance, the legal, privacy, and cyber specifically probably would have some some there.
Yeah, the only one I'd add to that is IT, because as an ethical
Mm, that's
hacker, I
true.
exploited their mistakes almost more than the average user's
That's true.
mistakes. But I couldn't agree more. I think those are really great roles. I know that as everyone goes down this path, and we're seeing it more and more because the CMMC requirements are dictating that you have to have role based training. Of course, in typical government fashion, they didn't name a single role. They just said that you need to have it. So we'll see
Very
what
high
that
level. Yeah.
yeah. I guess it's up to us to define it. I don't know. We'll see.
But if you
um,
don't do it, they'll come at you. That's the kind of the way it is. It like it's
exactly.
I hate the ambiguous stuff, right? But yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think the goal is to let industry flesh it out. But when it's ambiguous, what my experience is that most places just do the bare minimum.
Mhm.
Oh, well, if I can interpret it this way or this way, this costs less.
Yeah,
So,
that costs less.
exactly. Okay, so I love to ask one question on every single podcast, and that is, if you only had one tool in your arsenal that you could use from now on to drive engagement and to drive awareness, would it be the carrot or would it be the stick?
I'm a carrot kind of person. Like I think of the stick as the Department of No sort of security, and I just don't think
You don't want to be
that
Dr.
works.
No?
I don't want to be Doctor No. I do not. Like I've kind of lived it. I've done that before, and I just don't think we're there in this day and age anymore, right? I think
Well, I don't think it
uh,
was the right way to
I
begin
don't.
with. It's just
I
we
don't
didn't know
either.
any better.
We didn't know any better, right? Cyber was maturing. People were learning more about cyber, and like everything that you read, and this could go on for a while, but like a good CISO today is business aware, right? I just think that,
Yes.
when
Enabler.
they're a business enabler. And in order to do that, you got to speak two languages, you got to speak the business and speak the tech. And so I think that, in order to do that, you kind of have to get along with people, just to be frank, right? Maybe the DevOps sort of revolution kind of started that. But I think also as security has just gotten more expensive, they're having to prove their value more, which ironically, they didn't have to do as much. But I think that in order to both be a business enabler, to prove your value, you have to work with other departments. And so I think that's where the carrot comes in, right? It's the, hey, let's work together. Let's entice people. Let's figure out how to do this. Let's get rewarded for doing the right thing. I think that's the way to do it. I just think that when you use the stick method, like things just don't get done, right? You ultimately at the end of the day, if you have, 5,000 vulnerabilities in your environment because you scan the code, like they got to get fixed. And if you're just sitting there hitting somebody over the head and tossing them over or whatever, then they're not going to do it. But hey, what if we have this security champion program that provides training, it provides education, like provides a way for you to maybe do them a little bit at a time, like, and then whoever fixes the most bugs in the next sprint, gets something, gets a gift card. Or I don't know. Like I just think that's the carrot is just by and large the best way to do it.
And I'll point out that let's take the developer, the vulnerabilities in our code base, right?
Mhm.
And if you're the developer and all I'm using is the stick, you're not motivated to really fix that. You're only motivated to kick the can down the road. So,
Sure.
what's that mean? Well, you can just as easily say, hey, I fixed it, send it back for retesting with one line of code being changed, knowing that it's going to fail. And I've seen it happen a million times where things go through retest after retest after retest after retest, and it's because the people aren't being engaged. There's no motivation to actually fix it. There's only motivation not to get in trouble. And I think when you use the stick, that's what it becomes. I don't want to get in trouble. And so people are much, much more likely to do the bare minimum. And
Yeah.
that's not what we want. We want to
Mm-mm.
build that growth mindset and that growth culture where people go above and beyond. They help their coworkers. There's a team effort. I think that's what we want to cultivate. And it really even goes to the whole argument for more people to at least try and be extroverted, or even just more extroverts inside of cybersecurity. Because when we don't go out and talk to the different department heads, the different people in our organizations, we only think we see all the risk.
I love it. No, you're spot on, right? It's a matter of encouraging them so that, they want to take ownership. They don't want it to happen again, right? Not do the bare minimum, but maybe they fix it when they find it instead of having it make its way through, right? Yeah, I love that. It's an easier way to make them have ownership of their own security, right?
Yeah.
When you have that kind of carrot method of thinking, which is ultimately what we want. Like, whether you want to call it the shift left, I don't care what you call it, but ultimately we want everybody to be responsible for their security, whether it's a developer, whether it's an IT person. We're still going to be there to catch their mistakes. Like, we don't expect anybody not to make a mistake, but ultimately that's what the carrot induces, is kind of that I want to do the right thing.
And, and I think almost everybody wants to do the right thing.
Hmm.
There's this misconception that you got all these people that just don't care, and that's just not true. Even like on the hey, you clicked on a fish thing, I expected all kinds of people to lie. Like almost nobody lies when they're just more honest than I ever would have expected.
Hmm.
And that's because people want to do a good job. Everyone has a sense of pride about what they do, or
Hmm.
most people anyway. And so it's very rare that you get that obstinate person that doesn't want to do good, that doesn't care if they click on fish. And one thing I've noticed over the years is that person has committed a lot of other crimes in the organization by the
Yeah.
time that they don't, or they click on too many fish or whatever, they rise to a level of risk that you need to escalate it to HR. And so one thing I'd say is, our job is to communicate risk. If that person needs fired, there's other reasons that they're going to
Right.
need to be fired. But for everybody else, they're trying. And so we've got to try too, because the more we try, the easier it is for them to do when they try. I don't know.
To some, you're right. I mean, usually the ones that have been problem children, so to speak, like, they're already known to be problems because they don't work well with others, or like the ego is like there's something else going on, and it's not personal. But I feel like, if you make if you make it easy for someone to do the right thing, then that's when you win their hearts and minds. I think when in my experience, I talked with the CISO maybe, I don't know, 4 or 5 months ago, and they're just having problems with their DevOps team. He's like, they won't fix anything, they won't work with me, they won't do any of that, right? And ultimately, it's like, okay, well, let's take a step back and figure out why, right? Because
Yeah, that's not
probably what's
normal.
no, probably what's happening is you're throwing a bunch of stuff over to them and saying you're not fixing it. Well, how can we make it easy for them to fix? Like, in my experience, I bring them into and this is what I always advise when I'm doing, like, my training and stuff, is like, um, bring them into the decision making process, right? If you're gonna have a vulnerability management tool, bring in the DevOps team and say, look, we want to make this easy for you. Like, what language are you building in? What IDE do you use? Are what build process do you use? Are you a Jenkins shop, Circle CI, whatever? And let's make this easy for you so that you can integrate it and there's not a lot of work, right? And to me, making it easier on them so that they can still do their work, making them think that they have not just something that security has mandated, but making them have a seat at the table. Like, those two things are what really helps in my, it's not a 100% solution, but that the kind of taking that general mindset is really kind of what you were saying, right? It helps them. They want to do the right thing. Let's make it easy for them to do the right thing, and let's empower them in the decision making process as well.
And I think another thing we can do is praise them when they
Hmm.
do the right thing.
Yeah.
I see a lot of teams, a lot of organizations or security awareness programs that are really, really good at telling somebody when they do a terrible job. Hey, you clicked, you suck, man. But they're not as good at telling them when they do a great job or a good job. And to me, when they click report on one of our simulations, that's an opportunity to be back there saying, "Hey, I can't fool you. You're a rock star," or when they click report on a real fish, that's an opportunity to be in their inbox saying, "Hey, you truly just saved the company from a real cyber attack.
Yeah.
This is why we need you." And guess what
Yep.
happens? The next time they see something suspicious, they get a smile on their face and they get excited because they get to report it. And what's going
Good
to
support.
happen? They're going to get kudos, and
Yep.
everybody loves a pat on the back. To me, that's the type of gamification we should be using for adults. It doesn't have to be a gold sticker. Just tell them great job. That's what they want.
I love it. No, you're spot on. Give them a praise, give them a pat on the back, reward them, and like you said, that they'll be your friends, and they'll help spread the word, right? That's ultimately what it's about. Is you want That's kind of a different way of building security champions. It's a different type, right? It's the ones that are looking out for security that want to help and do the right thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we are running a little bit low on time. I try to keep this to about 45 minutes.
Sure.
Um, I did want to ask you real quickly, though, what are you doing for Security Awareness Month? I know we've got, 2 days left. So, but have you done anything special, anything fun? Went and given any talks anywhere? Tell us what's up this month.
Yeah, I'll tell you what I have done, besides, the posting on LinkedIn, which, whatever. I had the opportunity. I posted about it a little bit, but I've really taken the opportunity to take it to the schools. So, I've got 4 kids. My oldest is 12, going on 13, and cybersecurity is a
We're
little bit,
busy, really
yeah,
busy.
busy, really busy. Luckily tonight we only have one soccer game to go to instead of two or three. But
Only
uh,
one.
uh, but like, one of the things, so I went and spoke at their school on cybersecurity, and it it's continually enlightening to me, about, um, the fact that they don't kids don't always know what cybersecurity is, right? In 2024, they still think, it's missiles, and it's national cybersecurity and things like that. They don't understand necessarily the fish. They don't understand, that people are going to want to take their information. Like, that's not really on their minds. And so, I've kind of taken up the cause, if you will. Like, I really want to do more with my kids and my school this month, and in other months as well, to, like, all right, let's let them know, like, not only here's good cybersecurity, but here are the different careers that you can have in cybersecurity. Kind of
Love it.
doing both.
Virtual high five, man.
Woo.
Uh, no, I think that's a really good one. Actually, BZ, he's the Navy Reserve Cyber Warfare Commander. He's doing a series where he's asking all kinds of people how they got into security, and he's doing a TEDx in Silicon Valley where he's just playing all these videos. And I thought that was really cool.
That is cool.
But one of the fun, or I guess one of my passion side projects, charity initiatives, whatever you want to call it, we got an opportunity to work with cyber.org, funded by DISA. And the whole goal of cyber.org is to take that training into K through 12 schools and start getting it in front of people really young. And so at our, youngest sort of, I guess, themed stuff, we created like these little short videos under 60 seconds they can play in the classroom. But it starts off with a focus on second grade and talking about who they're going to meet online and what types of dangers there are, and game chat and the types of scams they're going to get hit with, and
That's
then it
awesome.
works its way up as they get older and older. And so I really do feel we need more of that when you look at just, I guess. I don't know, just are people entering the workforce. The youngest people are as insecure as the oldest people.
Yeah.
It almost doesn't make sense to me that the people that grew up on technology are just as insecure as the people that didn't have technology until they were, quite a way into their adult life. And
Yeah.
so it's, at clearly missed the mark somewhere because they have this false sense of security. And so, if we want it to be second nature, like looking both ways before we cross the street, that starts at a young age. And
It
so
does.
that's what,
It because they live in a different world to some extent, right?
oh, they do.
I'm older, right? And so like I'm sitting here, like every time my daughter wants to install an app on her phone, I'm like, is there a chat feature? Like, who can you talk to? Like, that's something you have to think about because a lot of these games and things like that, like, there's a lot of things that can happen in the background of who they can talk to and chat with. And so, like, I'm pretty strict with explaining to her, like, or I'll let you have Life 360, but which we probably can have a whole other discussion about whether that's okay or not. But like, you can't chat and you can't be in it with your friends, right? Or you can do your Spanish Duolingo, but like we're not going to do the chat function and things like that. Just stuff like that, right? So just meeting them where they're at is kind of important, and that's what I like working with the kids and trying to understand what they do day in and day out. Because I mean, I don't always know. I don't do video games or all their social media apps as much as I do.
I mean, I used to feel like I was always up on things, and now I'm starting to feel old. So
There you
some
go.
of the slang I don't even get. But
I don't either.
jokes aside, this has been an amazing episode. Because it's Security Awareness Month, do you have any advice for the non technical user who might stumble across this program?
I mean, the best advice that I can have is as cliche as it might be, is to always think, right? Always double check. You know, my wife, we've been married for 15 years now, and I've been doing this for a while. So she'll come to me and she'll have me look over something. Like if it smells fishy, no pun intended, like she'll come and say, Tim, will you just look at this to make sure? Cause I think something's up with this. Like just get a second set of eyes. Like if you think something is strange or fishy, there's a good chance that it is. And so don't be afraid to just step up and just ask somebody else, hey, what do you think about this? Right. That's the best advice I can give is don't be ashamed or scared to do that.
Yeah, and trust your gut.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people don't realize that gut feeling that they've gotten that's probably saved their lives. It did for me when I was a teenager many times. But that gut instinct that you get is your subconscious that moves at a rate much quicker than conscious brain, just warning you about things. And it's your body's built-in antivirus. So the more you can learn about the types of attacks you're going to be targeted with, the better your subconscious is at detecting them.
Love it. Spot on.
Well, hey, thank you so much for joining us. To the audience, thank you once again. We'll be back tomorrow with another episode of Fishing for Answers. Thank you and have a great day.